Basilica of St. Patrick's Old Cathedral is the original cathedral of the Archdiocese of New York. Since its construction 200 years ago on the corner of Mott and Prince, it has stood as the heart of Old New York, a beacon for the Catholic faithful and an American symbol of religious freedom. Originally the center of a once impoverished Irish community, St. Patrick's has expanded to serve a diverse community of Catholics from Italian, Hispanic, Asian, and various other origins. Today, our Basilica of St. Patrick's Old Cathedral remains a vital force in the community which proudly unites Catholics through worship, social groups, and spiritual guidance. As me and my friends took the trip out to the city to explore more about this church, little did we know that this church had tons of history. The history began in the 17th century with French-born Father Isaac Jogues, a Jesuit who landed in New York State. Father was one of the North American martyrs sent as missionaries to the Quebec Hurons in the early 1640s. He escaped capture and torture by an Iroquois party in 1643 with the help of Dutch Calvinists who smuggled him by boat to New Amsterdam, which was later named New York, where he was warmly welcomed as a martyr of Jesus Christ by William Keith. Father Jogues sailed back to Europe upon learning that 18 different languages were spoken among the settlement population, numbering around 500, described as having the arrogance of Babel. He later returned as an Iroquois missionary, though he was seized and murdered in 1649 by a member of the Mohawk tribe. His canonization was in 1930 by Pope Pius XI. This cathedral was the first house of worship in the United States to be dedicated to Ireland's patron saint, St. Patrick, which it's obviously named after. St. Patrick organized the Irish Church in the 5th century. Known as the Apostle of Ireland, Patrick was consecrated as bishop circa 432. He traveled tirelessly through Ireland, preaching, writing, and teaching, converting chiefs and barbs, gathering followers, establishing churches and schools, building monasteries, and performing miracles. Since specific rules for canonization were not set down until the 10th century, local veneration of St. Patrick evolved into his sainthood. This cathedral was originally designed by Joseph Mangin, a French-born architect and engineer, who arrived in New York in 1745 and soon established a reputation as a skilled architect and builder. In 1802, Mangin, along with native-born architect John McComb Jr., won the competition for the design of New York's present City Hall, which was completed in 1812, with their plans for an exquisite French Renaissance exterior and a splendid Federal-style interior. The first bishop appointed to the diocese was Irish-born Richard Luke Consinan. The Napoleonic Wars prevented him from reaching New York, and he died in Italy around 1810. The work of governing as administrator of the diocese continued to be carried out by Father Coleman, who devoted himself to fundraising and overseeing construction of the cathedral. He maintained those responsibilities until the arrival in November 1815 of the second bishop, 65-year-old John Connolly, who was an Irish Dominican theologian who was held in high repute by both Pius XI and Pius XII. Bishop Connolly directed the construction of several new churches in the diocese and founded an orphanage in a wood framing building at 32 Prince Street across from the cathedral. That was staffed in 1817 by 3 Sisters of Charity sent to New York by Mother Elizabeth Ann Seton. Pierre Toussaint, a leading financial supporter, generously contributed funds to the orphanage for close to 40 years. Deeply rooted in the community, the Basilica of St. Patrick's Old Cathedral continues its tradition of providing for the spiritual needs of Catholics of all ages. In 2013, the Basilica once again became a place where Roman Catholics could be buried on the island of Manhattan. Parish leadership engaged Frank Alfieri, a consultant to conduct a feasibility study to introduce columbaria for the purpose of reviving the tradition of Christian burial on the grounds of the Basilica by accepting cremated remains of parishioners and friends of the Basilica. Several columbaria have been constructed in both our historic cemetery and treasured catacombs, and once again, Old St. Patrick's Cathedral is an honored burial place for the faithful departed of New York City and beyond. The exact purpose that the pioneer Catholic community of New York City had originally intended for the land when it was purchased in 1801. The beauty of Not only this church, but churches in general have always struck me in ways differently than any other monument or building possibly could. The art that is displayed on the walls of this church can only do so much as to show you the events that may have taken place, the important tasks that people may have been completing, or simply just the beauty of some of the most spiritually divine. It can really show us how the church is both human and divine. It is rooted in the mystery of Jesus, rooted in that profession of faith expressed by Peter, who quotes, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus is the heart of the church, and it is Jesus that allows us to say the church is holy. In the beginning of my Kellenberg journey, it has always been an interest to me as to why people devoted so much of their lives to Jesus and so much to the church. I would go to church with my family and see people all around me who are just so into praying and being able to be one with Jesus in that moment in time. The church helps me to understand just how important all this really is, how important it is to believe that He is there and that while you are in the church, you are there with Him. This has all made me come to the realization that the role of the church is simply to make Christ known and loved, to spread the knowledge of salvation everywhere, and to pray and suffer for the salvation of souls. Christ gave His church the commission to spread the message of salvation to the ends of the earth. As humans, we should always remember to live life through Him, with Him, and in Him.